Dr. Saab, how did you come into the human rights movement? Was it a coincidence or something happened?
It's not a coincidence actually. I came to the human rights movement through M.N. Roy. Although M.N. Roy is known to be only a humanist and not a human rights activist, but that's not true. Because मैं जब देहरादून आया फिर चांस है कि आई केम टू M.N. Roy and then he asked me कि कहाँ रहते हो. मैंने कहा मेरे पास कोई जगह नहीं करने के, तो यहाँ है हमारे premises में कमरा है, you can stay here. So I started staying there. तो उनके यहाँ ऊपर लाइब्रेरी था, तो मैं एक दिन ऐसे ही कास्ट सिस्टम के ऊपर बात कर रहा था, ब्राह्मण के ऊपर. तो मैंने कहा ये ब्राह्मण, तो कहने यू डोंट मीन ब्राह्मण एज एन इंडिविजुअल, यू मीन द ब्राह्मणिकल system. मैंने कहा yes. So but then he saw my interest in the caste system, so he told me that there is a book in the library on the caste in India by an Englishman, I.C.S. Hunt, because you can read that. But since he knew that I was totally opposed to the caste system, so he warned me, because that book is a bit pro-caste, but if you can give up your prejudices, then that book will help you tremendously. And he was so right. I read that book. That is the only book I read about caste, and I think that is wonderful. And what a pity a book like that was written by an Englishman and not by an English scholar, not by an Indian. So that's how. And then in his writings, in number of places, he refers to social justice. Even in his prison volumes, there is more reference to social justice than to any other book, about the caste system. For instance, he calls it the ugly relic of the past, and how to get rid of that. There he has his differences with other intellectuals. As you know probably that M.N. Roy had many admirers amongst intellectuals. K.M. Panikkar was one of them. So once he asked K.M. Panikkar to write an article for the Marxian Wave, which he had just started, and Panikkar agreed, and Panikkar wrote an article on the caste system, and Panikkar suggested that the state should abolish caste in this country, otherwise there is no remedy. Roy did not agree with him. He said, no. If you allow the state to do these things, then ultimately the state will become a fascist state. So this is a thing, the caste and such systems which have been very harmful for India, to be tackled by intellectuals. Once they come to the conclusion that this is a wrong system, then it is they who should take the initiative to see that this thing is removed from our social system, from social norms. The caste should not be allowed to interfere in such matters,
But isn't it an irony that neither the human rights movement nor the movement for the self-respect or movement for the rights of Dalits ever recognized M.N. Roy and his contribution?
It's a very sad thing for a country like India. Well, it is one thing that M.N. Roy has not been recognized as such. He is dead, so it doesn't matter to him whether he is recognized or not. But it does matter to our society as such, that some of the wise things that he had recommended are not being followed by either the Dalits or those who consider that the caste system is an evil. Even Mahatma Gandhi, according to whom the untouchability and the communalism, these are the two most important obnoxious evils in this country. If these are not removed, then India does not deserve to be an independent country. Even he did not recognize the evil thing involved in the Varna system. He said the Varna system must remain. I would refer you to one thing, that is Tagore-Gandhi debate. Tagore asked Gandhiji that you are wrong, because if you are against untouchability, then you have to see that the Varnashram is not a the correct system. Gandhi did not agree with him, but if you read the correspondence, you will see that Tagore was intellectually far superior to Gandhi. Of course, the debate did not give any conclusion, but it is quite clear even Tagore did not agree with Gandhi on this issue, on this Varnashram. But Gandhi was adamant. Gandhi said the Varnashram must remain and untouchability can be tackled without disturbing the Varnashram. It is not possible. So where a man like Gandhi has failed, we are much too small people, smaller people who will not succeed. But even then, we have to keep on fighting. I am only suggesting that M.N Roy's philosophy of radical humanism is one such philosophy through which this whole caste system and the Dalit question, because Dalits have nowhere to go except to humanism. Dr. Ambedkar recognized it, realized it, and that's why I suggest that he accepted, he converted himself to Buddhism, because Buddhism is one religion which is without God. It is a godless religion. So Ambedkar saw that God has done incalculable harm more to the Dalits than to the other people in the Hindu society. So he brought Buddhism in the picture and he advised his people to convert themselves to Buddhism.
But you were associated with PUCL, an organization like PUCL which came in the aftermath of emergency in 1975. And don't you think that PUCL and the other organization have rarely raised the issue of caste, and perhaps you had to struggle a lot to bring the issue of Dalit in these organizations? So what have been why there is a resistance among the human rights groups to raise the issue of caste and Dalits?
You see, most unfortunately and regrettably, the human rights activists in this country, they associate human rights violations only with state violation of human rights. They did not recognize that societal violation is more dangerous than state violation. Or, to put it in a different way, if you do not tackle the societal violation, like for instance communalism, as you have seen in Gujarat, and Dalit, atrocities on Dalits as the human rights, NHRC has recognized recently. If you don't tackle these, then state violation of human rights cannot be tackled. After all, the policeman, where does he come from? He comes from the same strata of society as you and I do. Or, therefore, they are the people who perpetrate atrocities on Dalits or on Muslims, like that, This is one thing. And then the other aspect, how I came in contact, that is from my experience of my village. I am a Bengali and I was born in that part of India which at that time was known as East Bengal, East Pakistan, now known as Bangladesh. And that was a Hindu majority area and Muslim. And I saw myself how the Muslims were treated by the Hindus in East Bengal. And I maintain that it is because of this Hindu treatment of Muslims that Bengal was partitioned, once in 1905 and then second time in 1947. And it's not only my this thing. A woman has written a thesis on this subject. One Chatterjee, Mrs. Chatterjee, Joya Chatterjee, and she got a PhD on this work from Cambridge. That is, and then it is known as Bengal Divided. I recommend this book to anybody. Even Gandhi were alive today, I would have gone to Gandhi and went to him and don't give lecture to anybody. Read this book first. Do you know that Gandhi did not take any cooked meal in any Muslim house? So how can you solve the societal violation of human rights when you have that attitude? In East Bengal, in my part of Bengal, a Hindu would not drink even water, even if he is dying, even then he will not drink water from a Muslim hand. Or for instance, in a glass which was first used by a Muslim. No, the question doesn't arise. In marriage ceremonies and all that, Muslims, even if they were very important people, would not be invited. Even if they were invited, separate arrangements should be made for them. Separate glasses to drink water, separate plates.
But also, the
That-
same
that
kind
is
of
so-
situation is still existing in Bangladesh today.
Huh?
The Muslims are doing a reversal role. Organizations like Jamaat-e-Islami
Yes.
have launched a war against the minorities there, against the Hindus.
Yes.
there. So how do you tackle this situation? Like whoever is in the majority in a place is targeting the minorities.
Exactly, because this is, as I have maintained all during all these years that I have been writing on this, it is majority communalism which is the most dangerous thing. It is not the minority communalism. For instance, in our country, the RSS, they talk of Muslim communalism also. No, Muslim communalism is not as dangerous in our country as Hindu communalism, that majority communalism. Now, this is, yes, how to tackle. There again the caste system comes in the picture, because you see we have to reform ourselves. Then immediately we will ask that reformists have not been able to achieve anything in this country during the last 2 centuries. That's true, they have not. But then there is no other way also. Because if we want to tackle, for instance, recurrence of another Gujarat, then how do we go about it? Either the state we have seen that the state cannot help, the state does not succeed. Therefore, the intellectuals, they have to come together and have brainstorming sessions one after the other. I can give one example. When the NHRC came into existence, I was the first person to write an article against it saying that the NHRC should be instituted only to tackle the people in our society who are downtrodden and who are deprived. And therefore, the members also should come from those categories, Nobody else. And then when Justice Mishra became the chairman, people like Tarkunde Rajani Kothari, and they were opposed to his appointment. They were opposed to his appointment, only for one reason. That is because the Sikh, anti-Sikh, 1984 anti-Sikh, right, he was appointed the commission to and he completely ignored the society which was formed for that purpose, and did not take into account the politicians who were responsible, but only dealt with the police and others. So people like me, I personally, I not only told him, told everybody, Tarkunde and everybody, well, this is wrong, this is nonsense,
But
The killing was not done by the police. Killing was done by the non-policemen, by the willing executioners of the politicians. So therefore, if a commission cannot do that, such a man has no right to become the chairman of the NHRC,
But isn't it that again we are coming to these, like all these commissions, whether it is the National Human Rights Commission or SC/ST commissions or National Commission for Minorities, are these institutions being created to give jobs to a few retired people, or those who haven't made it to the ministry? They are being given, like a person heading minorities commission is trying to reconcile between RSS and other organizations. So is it the job of minority commission to go to tell people that you talk to the VSP, you talk to the RSS? That what these days the minority commission is doing?
You are partially right. That is meant for people who must be provided. Again, why? Because the state wants to use these institutions to come to its rescue and to help the state for all the wrongdoings that it indulges. Actually, that is the, and so they have, NHRC was created primarily with a view to rescue the Indian state at that time because Indian state at that time was under attack from all governments in abroad and all funding agencies. They announced that no funding agency will anymore give any money to India unless they rectify the situation. That's why. So they thought once NHRC is created, the NHRC will give a good cheat to the government of India, and then they will make use of that good cheats before the UN, before Japan, before US, who had announced that they will not give any more money to India for any purposes, and to the funding agencies. That is, yes. But so far as the Minority Commission is concerned, yes, in fact, the man who was first appointed, the chairperson, was a judge from Andhra Pradesh High Court, and he was Narasimha Rao's man. So, and that Minority Commission at that time, even when Tada came, and I tried my best to bring the Minority Commission in the picture. He says, look, Tada is being used against the Muslims in Gujarat and all that, so therefore you should stand up. You may not be able to do anything, but at least you should stand up. They did not stand up, but at least the NHRC stood up. NHRC, did we see? I still remember when the NHRC first held a meeting and invited all NGOs, many activists. Then in that meeting, the NHRC said it, what a shame that a country like India has Tada, which is an uncivilized law. The members said it openly in that meeting. But again, that is.
I want to ask you, I had read your editorial in PUCL bulletin when you talked about NHRC and sometimes futility of the organization. But after NHRC's intervention in two areas, particularly on Gujarat and the other on the Durban Conference against racism, they came out strongly in support of the Dalit groups, as well as in Gujarat they came out against the communal Gujarat government. Do you think that NHRC has now lived up to its expectation?
No, I don't think so. I'll tell you how it came about. Very simple. You see, I was in very close contact with the NHRC when it came into existence. Then I came to know the Secretary General, one Mr. Pillai. Then I found in him a quick learner. I told Mr. Pillai, I said, Mr. Pillai, if you want to survive, then you have to take up the societal violation dimension. So to begin with, I suggest you have a brainstorming session, not in North India, but in South India. Then he agreed at once. He said yes, and asked if I could put it in writing. I said I will put it in writing in my individual capacity, but not on behalf of PUCL. So I wrote it there and then in his office. Then he offered me a cup of tea. He says, I will just be with you in another couple of minutes. So he went out of the office and then returned, and he says, okay, done. Yes, on principle we have accepted your proposal that we should have a brainstorming session on this question of human rights of Dalits. But then he says, I said it should be done not by NHRC alone, but in cooperation with some Dalit organizations. So they asked me, then I suggested one organization in Madras, Dalit Human
Liberation Trust.
Yes. So they agreed, and the first brainstorming session was held in Madras NHRC in cooperation with that, and I took a leading part in that. And so subsequently, I edited that book, and it came out, the proceedings, and it came out as Human Rights of Dalits. That is the first. After that, I suggested also to the NHRC, I said, look, it's very good, you have started that, and that I wrote in an editorial in the PUCL bulletin. But now the NHRC should divert its attention to this communal rights, and they should have a brainstorming session that. Unfortunately, they did not pay any heed to that, but after that, as you know, there have been many human rights violations because of communal rights, particularly during the Rath Jatra and after the demolition of Babri Masjid, you see, in Surat, in Maharashtra, in Bombay, and other parts of Maharashtra and other parts of India also. So one day when I was speaking to the some members of the Human Rights Commission, Dr. Paul, you are right, you see. We should have had that brainstorming session earlier, because A lot of damage has been done, and as you have pointed out in your report on Aligarh, a lot of damage has been done. So I said, look, I am not suggesting the NHRC is a panacea for all, everything, that you can stop everything. No. But at least you can start a movement so that other people also would be drawn to that look, we must start somewhere and see that this is stopped. Human rights violations of Dalits are respected, women are respected, children's education, and all these things are so.
There has been no follow-up at all.
No, unfortunately not. It is only until their eyes opened, only when it started in Gujarat. So then they sent a team to Gujarat. But that was too late, The idea is once it started and then you started, it does not happen, But at least the NHRC has now recognized this thing. You will be surprised to know at one time when I drew their attention to Dalit human rights, then in their annual report they dismissed it by using only 2 words, ancient wrongs, that's all. I wrote on a number of occasions, I said, this is all humbug. What do you mean by ancient wrongs? You should. And then I tried to draw them. I said, what is ancient wrong? If it is caste system, then you must say that the caste system should be tackled. So the NHRC, they did accept, they did go to Durban and recommended, but without accepting the fact that the caste system is the real evil, and unless that evil number 1 is tackled, the evil number 2, namely untouchability or discrimination against Dalits, cannot be tackled, That the NHRC has not yet accepted, nor our human rights groups in this country. You might have heard of one man who has done a good work in this respect, Henry Tifagne, in Madurai or where, Madurai, you see. One day I asked him, I said, look, you see, why don't you accept that also? You see, you should come out openly against the caste system, the most importantly. Then some of them would always say, Dr. Saab, you don't know, if we say this, then we will be completely wiped out. Or I said, who can wipe out? The state will not come against you. I was wrong. Henry was correct, because very recently you might have heard that Henry's organization was attacked and the police came and they arrested Henry and all his colleagues and took them to jail, because they were. So, but the question is, once you are in this field, once you have a shop, you run your shop properly. If not, close down your shop, because it is understood. You see, once you come out like this, the state or some agencies of the state might like to persecute you. You should be prepared to face that. If you are not prepared to face that, you close down your shop, I once told the NHRC, when the chairman was there, I said, look, so far as human rights violations are concerned, you cannot be apologetic in your language. If you are apologetic, then close down your shop. Recommend to the government of India that the NHRC should be closed. And I said, look, it's not only you, I have told the PUCL that if you are apologetic, I was able to bring Dalit question in the PUCL through the columns of the PUCL bulletin, and thanks to one man, Justice Sachar, who does not have any special weak corner for the Dalit, but he was a genuine liberal, and he was the president of the PUCL at that time, and he gave me absolute freedom and liberty to write anything. I mentioned one small incident. I once wrote an editorial that unless the caste system is abolished lock, stock and barrel, it is no use. Human rights movement in this country cannot flourish. Once they had their annual conference in Bombay, and Nissim Ezekiel, one of the best known Indo-Anglian poets, he was there to inaugurate this session. And he stood up and he says, I have been reading the PUCL bulletin from page first word to last word, and I have read your editor's editorial, in which he says that unless the caste system is abolished, lock, stock and barrel, human rights movement cannot start. I said, I don't agree with him, because Then there are other systems in other religions. So that means we have to first tackle with those. I said, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Ezekiel, I hold this view. And your political guru and my political guru, we are guru wise. Say, I have learnt it from the same guru, because Nissim Ezekiel was also at one time a Royist. So, but then just as I started arguing with him, then Justice Sachar stood up. He says, look, I am the chairperson of the PUCL, and I want to intervene at this stage because our editor, Dr. Pal, has the complete freedom to give expression to his views. And I know, as once I rang him up, because when he quoted the Gita, I thought he was wrong. So immediately he cut me short by saying on the telephone, he says, Judge Sahab, if you don't agree with me, you have just to give me a hint, I will stop writing on this topic. But I did not. I said, no, you must continue writing, but I only wanted to tell you that your quotation from the Gita is not the correct, is not the most appropriate one. Then I asked him, then he asked me, is it the correct one? I told him, yes, you have quoted correctly from the Gita, but I only say that it is not the appropriate one in relation to the Varna system, that's all. And after that he went on writing about the caste system in the same language and manner as he has been writing. So he has the complete freedom, Mr. Ezekiel, and he is not compelling you or me to accept his point of view, but he has the right to bring it to our notice, and I am personally grateful to him that he has brought this subject on the PUCL agenda, and not only on the PUCL agenda, I am sure he will bring it on many other agendas of this, you see, because this is an absolutely important issue. Our political guru, Dr. Lohia, also thought about this like this, and he wrote also extensively on this subject.
This is the paradox I want to talk about, and the paradox of Indian human rights movement or intellectual circles. They are very comfortable talking in terms of communalism. When the question of Gujarat came, or question of Meerut rights or Malyana rights, or in Muradabad or in Bombay in 1992. In 1992, we saw a number of groups sitting on the dharnas at Rajghat. We saw a number of people, expressing their deep anguish over what has happened to the Babri Masjid. But when the question of Dalits comes, the same secular intellectuals, the same secular human rights activists keep a conspicuous silence. What is the paradox? Why? Why the same people don't come and say that what has happened against the Dalits is wrong? We have so many mass protests against the war in Iraq. But when the issue of Kumbher comes, or issue of Lakshmanpur Bate comes, or issue of, say, Chandur comes, where Dalits are massacred, we don't hear that much of that kind of a media protest, that kind of protest from intellectuals, that kind of reporting from the even organization like PUCL. We have very, very good reports from PUCL on Kashmir. But why not same kind of reports on Dalits? Why is it the paradox?
I was a member of the Dalit Prakash, and I went to Durban. Now, our High Commission in South Africa, there were many groups, so to represent many aspects of this thing. So there was groups from Pakistan. So the Pakistan High Commission officials, they came and the tent of there and found out कि कैसा है आप लोग क्या है. Our High Commission, nobody from the High Commission, not even a junior secretary, turned up to find out, are you okay? Are you all right and all that. When I rang up, I took the telephone number of one secretary in the High Commission through my contact. I rang him up बोले ओ डॉक्टर साहब सॉरी यू नो वी डोंट हैव टाइम। कहले क्यों? कहले इतना वीआईपीज आ रहे हैं यहाँ। मैंने कौन वीआईपी? कहले आज आ रहे हैं वो जस्टिस सो एंड सो फ्रॉम द एनएचआरसी। तो मैंने कहा ही इज ए फ्रेंड ऑफ माइन, यू कैन टेल हिम दैट ही कैन मैनेज विदाउट ए secretary from the this thing, but at least once you should go to the temple. Then sorry, so nobody turned up from that. That is the concern of our people. The NHRC was there, number of members, but they also did not turn up to find out. You see, and the NHRC, the one thing the NHRC did before the Durban conference, they held a session and invited a good number of intellectuals and activists to discuss this issue, because the Dalit caucus, they are this thing that this should come on the agenda of the UN, that this is a straightforward human rights violations, and government of India was resisting. They said no, we will not. We accept, and the Dalit caucus intellectuals said that this is by birth, this is by birth, and the government of India's representative said no. Even the NHS said no, this is not by birth. We don't recognize, our constitution does not recognize, any discrimination because of birth. So I argued there, I said constitution may not, but does it or does it not actually exist? If it exists, then our only request is that the UN should adopt it, that's all. And then we failed. I, as a member of the group, I must say, to my great shame, that we failed, and we failed miserably. The UN did not put it on the agenda.
Was just the government opposed to it, or were there groups also, so-called human rights groups also? That's why the paradox I am talking about.
Not human rights group, but number of intellectuals, you see, they accepted this fact that the Dalit question is a very serious question, but they would not accept the fact that it is because of birth. That is discrimination due to birth. That nobody would you can see the Asgarly engineer has brought out a book, edited by him. He has collected all the articles written during that period, and he has given the title The Mondal Commission Controversy. And I would suggest you just go through the articles, the kind of people who wrote, all middle class intellectuals from universities. But nobody would accept this thing that it is. So that's where we failed. We failed because our intellectuals failed us.
But are these things like you talked about Asgarly engineer, and do you think we have continuously been trying to be apologetic about our past, like Asgarly engineer? There are many others who say, oh, this thing is not written in our textbooks. This doesn't happen. It is just, say, some Hindutva sort of people, or some Jamaat people, they are involved in communalism or casteism. Otherwise, our holy textbooks are very fine, very nice, and we have very golden past. I know that you have been writing that our past has never been golden. So, don't you think that we have not come to a stage where we can say that our past was not glorious, and that intellectuals are doing a great damage when they're trying to hide this kind of things?
Oh yes, I agree. I couldn't agree more, because this is we want to bask in the sun of our past glory. But what is that past glory? For instance, today Bangladesh has one heritage of which they should be proud, and they are now destroying it. That is the Baul singers. Baul singers, as you know, they are both Muslims and Hindus. And now the mullahs, the fundamentalists in Bangladesh, they have come down very heavily on the Baul scene in a village, in some villages in Murshidabad district. If practicing humanists, if I can think of any practicing humanists in this country, in this part of the world, South Asia, then Bauls are the only practicing humanists. Because you ask for Fakir Shah Lalon, he is the most important Muslim Baul singer. So his most important song is, people ask me my religion. I tell them I have no religion, and whatever I had, I have thrown it away in the marketplace. So you see, you go and pick up. Then he says in one song that if there is a Brahmin male, you know he is a Brahmin through because he has put on the paita, that thread. But how do you know if you see a woman? How do you know that she is a Brahmin? Because she does not use the paita, Like that. These are the kind of songs the Bauls sing. And they are now, the fatwa has been issued by the fundamentalist mullahs that they must be socially boycotted. People should not sell them anything. So, and they must not be allowed to irrigate their land. They must not be allowed to buy anything from any Muslim shop. Meaning they total boycott, both economic and social boycott in these a few villages in Murshidabad. So similarly in our country, we can be proud of our past, for instance, Buddhist past, or our materialist past, No. I don't think in recent times you will have come across any article written by any intellectual in our country about this past. They will always talk of the past of Ram and Krishna and all that, you see. And I don't know how one can be proud of Ram, you see.
But it will be blasphemy if you
Yes.
say
anything about,
because when Dr. Ambedkar wrote riddles
Yes.
of Rama and Krishna, there was protest against his books. It was banned by
Oh,
the
yeah.
government. So we are not a mature society still, not a civilized society.
Not at all, unless, you see, if we want to be a civilized society, we have to do away with the ugly relic of the past. I am using this phrase used by Roy, We have to do away with this ugly relic of the past. And that's why he talked of the Renaissance, M.N. Roy. That is, Renaissance means revival of the past. And when you revive the past, you retain the good things and bury the bad things. That's what the European Renaissance did, that they retained the good things of Greek and Roman civilization and buried the ugly past. Ugly things means, for instance, by the Pope. That is, the Pope would prescribe which book to read and which book not to read. But democracy, the Greek, that the Europeans retained, Or, for instance, it is the Renaissance, then people in Europe came to recognize the fact that man is created in his own image, not in God's image, Otherwise, the Catholic Church would prescribe that no, man is created in God's image. So that is the kind of revolution, a philosophical revolution we have to. One may not agree with many things that M.N. Roy has said, but this one thing, that is, unless you bring about a philosophical revolution to be followed by a social revolution, we don't see any future, the kind of future that, for instance, Europe achieved